We're live.
Okay, we're live.
We're live.
Oh, shit. Yes.
I want to ask a question. There we go. I want to ask a question before we realize after the fact that this was a topic that should have been discussed. But Bubble, are you into pro wrestling at all? Or
so I grew up on pro, like watching it, and I have an admiration. And obviously, there's certain people who doesn't love The Rock and Steve Austin. I don't follow it, but I like the old stuff. But my guitar player Mike and tour manager Matt, they are legitimately obsessed. So like when we have days off, they'll go up in the hotel and they'll they get like a jailbroke laptop thing, and they'll like hack the TV screen, and they'll play wrestling matches all day long. So I've gotten a lot of exposure. So I kind of like, I don't watch it by myself, but when it's on, I'm like, I kind of feel like I have to watch it. I don't know. They've got my interest, but.
I'm curious.
Where you're going is that if The Rock were to run to be president, we would all vote for The Rock?
Oh, yeah.
Sure. Why not?
I don't even care what his politics are. You know, he's just going to be awesome.
It's The Rock. He would just lay the
smack. What world leaders are going to argue with The Rock if he's like, hey, this is how we're going to do this, you know, in his like assertive, deep dad, like knife hand voice, you know, like, you go, okay, world peace. I get it.
Yeah. Hey, you know, maybe that's what's required. And here we are already talking about politics. 2 minutes in. We just said we weren't going to do this. So
it's The Rock.
I know it's The Rock. No, but I'm just bringing that up out of respect specifically to Jordan, who has made his backdrop so famous now in the past weeks based on professional wrestling. So I wanted to honor you by starting with that, you know?
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I think at this point we had Ronnie on for almost 2 hours, and it took until us talking after the episode for me to find out that he performed as a professional wrestler.
Yeah.
So I look.
Question mark?
You're asking about that?
So do you know Ronnie RJ Devine or Ronnie Devine? He does sound for Periphery, does sound for Animals as Leaders. Good looking guy, red hair, British. I don't know if you've ever crossed paths with him. Great dude.
Was he working for you guys when we were on tour on In Flames?
No, that was Marquides. That was Alex who was out with us. But
I just can't remember.
Yeah, no, it wasn't then. But Ronnie is you'd love him. He's a great guy. But yeah, cool. I didn't even know this. We found out that he performed as is it semi-pro or pro, Jordan?
I mean, he was an independent wrestler, so he wasn't working for like a national or international company.
Yeah.
But a pro wrestler is a pro wrestler in that sense.
Yeah.
Talking about Andy Williams, huh? Making it happen.
Yeah, dude, he was live on TNT last night. And
Bubba, you know what? It's funny. Like, I don't know. I'm sure you've known Andy probably as long as I have, and it's interesting because when he started doing that, I was like, homie, you're like 40, but okay, we'll see. And then like he made it happen. I was like, good for you, man. Like I know how much he's always been into wrestling, but I also know how beat up he is. You know, wears knee pads on stage, and you know, and he's it's like most of us are starting to break down a little bit, even though we keep putting our bodies through terrible stuff. But I'm so proud of him. He killed it. He's just. He really brought it to life, and I know it's just cool to see somebody go for something so unrealistic and out of the box of any. I mean, I don't know. I've only met one wrestler in my life, that Baron Corbin. He used to date Maria Brink, and I went and saw them when they played in Tampa. We toured with them forever ago, and Baron was there hanging out, and that's where I first met him. And I remember him being like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be a wrestler." I'm like, "Well, you're huge, so okay." And now he's obviously done really well. So I don't know. I don't know that world.
I'd argue he's one of the most effective heels or bad guy pro wrestlers in the most traditional sense, which is high praise. Yeah, he lives it. A lot of like quote bad guys want to be liked and want to sell merchandise and want to be like cool. And his philosophy has been, if I am not making people boo me in totality, then I'm not doing my job. So he's been very successful. I respect him a lot.
I want to say something about Andy. Andy became the character Mr. Williams, right? Violent Gentleman, the hockey brand. and he started repping the Mr. Williams thing. And I think he heavily steeped in pro wrestling. I think he became like this character, and people would go and you'd see this like massive dude on stage who was just crushing it on guitar, right? Stage left, just destroying things. And it was really exciting. And then, I think you could kind of see the professional wrestler in him start to come out over time. And I think he kind of, drew a lot of inspiration, I would imagine, from performing and realizing that, like, hey, it might seem like a dream, but so is a band being able to make it as long as Every Time I Die has been doing it.
Absolutely.
I mean, they made that scene. I know that's kind of like quoting a bit of a lyric from them, but like there was a scene that they kind of transcended, and then they just kept going and they never died out. And when everybody else kind of maybe walked away or weren't touring anymore, they're still kind of the champions. And I kind of think that, like, that's maybe his career as a professional wrestler as well, is that he just kept riding the wave. He was in the Pythons, doing the tag team stuff on the independent circuit, and he just kept riding it all the way out. And so whether he's 40, right, and he made it, or he took till he's 50, I think a guy like that, I think, had the perseverance that he would just, keep riding that wave until, like, the wheels fell off.
Yeah.
And look at him now. Every Wednesday night, TNT, crushing it.
And and it's funny, me and with Mike, my guitar player, being super into wrestling, he's been obsessed forever. He kind of, during our talks, he kind of explained to me how they work, and he's like, it's basically the same thing that we do. They make a salary, but it's up to them. They wrestle 6 times a week, and they rent cars, carpool, and and your rentals and hotels come out of your salary. And they drive to a gig. Instead of playing a show for an hour, they're beating the living shit out of each other, and then they have to go do it again the next night. So it's like being in a band, only way worse.
Totally, yeah. And
Total
definitely
props if you can go through that and be like, I'm going to do this. The same way as touring in a van goes, when you're 19, 20 and you're getting this thing started, you're like, I'll fucking sleep on Steve Dave's floor over there and eat and steal gas station food, and you're like, because for the love of the, and it's pretty commendable to do that all over again. Square one after being in a band for so long, and they're DIY as fuck. They still tour in bands and everything, which is
it's commendable. I mean,
super commendable.
But look at their trajectory, though, right? I mean, like, I look at them now, and then you get the Shitmas, the big Christmas show.
Yeah.
Thousands of people. Everyone goes out. Everyone flies to Buffalo, and I see the Facebook group that they have and what they've done. I mean, it's just incredible. Those who have supported Every Time I Die, it seems just like it's they're just on this very slow trajectory and they just keep going up. There was no skid. It's not coming down. They just keep going up, 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 up. And so, I mean, I think that's just, I think we can all find some inspiration in just keep pushing. If you never stop, you can't really fail, kind of and it keeps getting better and better.
Yeah.
I want to find a broader way to really make this valuable for anyone paying attention, assuming that most people listening to this don't give a shit about pro wrestling. But I have found that, I have both been a professional musician, I'd argue successful in various ways. I've also worked in the business of professional wrestling at a high level. And I have decided throughout my life to find the parallels or to find the patterns in things that seem very different. And I think my ability to do that has allowed me to have advantages over other, quote, candidates that might be up for a similar gig or job or however you'd call it. Look, even at the independent level, if you're an independent musician, we're using that analogy right now to pro wrestling, independent wrestlers, the merch table is just as important as it is for an independent band who runs their own merch table and figures out how do we brand what we're doing and how do we present it as whether it's marketing or physical product and trying to.
And then at a certain point, I think the initial contract, there's you get some shitty merch deal, right? And then after a certain while, once you become a certain name, you can renegotiate your merch rights in wrestling, correct?
It depends. So if you're signing with a specific company, but someone like Andy, for instance, prior to working for AEW, he was an independent wrestler. So every booking, I'd imagine, was its own unique deal with the local promoter. And that promoter may ask for a cut of merch, like some venues ask for a cut of merch, and some don't even think about that as part of a deal. So it's really different depending on who you're working with. Yeah, the nice thing about what Andy's doing, his boss is, I think, has a much more 21st century view on probably not only professional wrestling as a genre, but also just in a boss-employee relationship. They're really only working once a week at most right now.
Okay.
Maybe twice a week if they have a pay-per-view, which they do a few times a year. They're selling a TV product. So it's not like WWE, where if we're not in a pandemic, they're going to run maybe 4 nights a week. And then there's that, the 4, 5, 6 hours in a rental car on your own, where you're paying, you're right, your own expenses as far as hotel. So those who want to be a bit more frugal are getting a cheaper rental car and doing 4 in a car and 4 in a room, perhaps. But yeah, AEW on TNT, which Andy's a part of, that's primarily a TV product right now, which affords all of them the luxury of less bumps on their body, so more longevity, and it gives him the flexibility to live more than one dream, which is pretty amazing. Good on him.
Yeah, that's the coolest part to me is like he hasn't had to choose one over the other. He's doing both, and that's fucking really cool.
Yeah, no sacrifice there.
No. Well, so there's 2 things I want to bring up. One, Jordan, you need to have, I think, a 60-inch TV behind you to fit in with me and Justin and Bubble right now, because you don't have that.
That's going to turn into an 85.
That's insane. What is that? Is that like a 65 now?
It's 65 now, but after getting the wall done, he's like, well, probably should get an 85.
Yeah.
So he's going hard.
Architecturally, talk about that wall for a second, because I like that wall.
Isn't that neat?
That's a great wall.
Post it if you really want to.
Yeah. Take us to the wall. We've never done this where someone like goes somewhere else. Podcast. If you're listening to the podcast, youtube.com/chocolate croissants for the visual tour.
Yep. There you go.
Nice. We need it.
So
Thank you, Jordan.
we did Chris Franzak and I, homeowner, and so we did 3 renovations during quarantine so far. We got this really cool accent wall.
That's awesome.
And, the guy came in, it was really neat. He had to this was all orange peel, so we had to sand all that down, grit it, and put all these panels on. And then you got to put a coat over it and run molding all around the outside. You got some little palm plants, but it's pretty neat though. Like it just adds a whole different kind of texture vibe.
So for anyone who's only listening and not watching, it's got this it's this white wall with this wave pattern, almost like something that if you were kind of in an altered state, you would go over and start swirling your hand back and forth. And
have you seen Get Him to the Greek?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Smoke the furry wall or whatever.
It's very much like that, but you'd be going, kind of swashing side to side.
Yeah. It's very, if it remind me, it kind of feels like Zen, like you would, if you went into a massage place and it's kind of has that
yeah,
whatever. And then this is my favorite thing. This wall mirror. That's the front door down there.
Dance practice?
The whole, it's literally, look at this thing. It's a friggin' mirror. Look at the size of it.
It's amazing.
It's the whole wall. I don't know. I think it's awesome.
That is awesome.
Dance studio within the house.
Yeah. And that's the living room, or the little thing with the fireplace table.
Dude, I really like that chandelier. We were looking at something similar here. My wife thought it was a little bit too much. It was more my style, but she didn't go with it.
Bubba, where do you live?
Orlando, Florida.
Okay, that's where all the wrestlers live too.
Right.
Yeah, Florida's a big hub, especially Tampa and stuff. And so,
well, man, there's nothing more fun than new toys or walls or gadgets or fixtures in a house to look at and feel inspired by. So that's great.
adulting.
Yeah, it's adulting, and I've been following you posting about it, obviously. So I'm familiar with the mirror wall and the wavy wall, but I dig it.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say was, speaking of perseverance, I mean, I was trying to remember whether you and I met first. I think it was at Warped Tour because of Band Happy doing stuff with Bring Me the Horizon when you were working with that crew, and then
Forgot about that.
And it was all like business talk at that point. I mean, we were like, yeah, you're cool. We can talk about this stuff. But then I remember we became a lot more friendly. Dare I say, we became friends when we toured with All the Remains, Periphery, All the Remains, and
In Flames.
In Flames. Yeah. Who else was it? Just
No, there was a fourth, but I can't remember who it was.
Corbin.
Was it Revocation? No. Oh, it was Norma Jean, wasn't it?
Nope.
It wasn't Norma Jean? Damn. Okay, then my memory's shot. I don't remember who it is. But anyway, you, me, and Ben, new guy, hung out quite a bit. And then we've been friends ever since. So the thing I was mentioning about perseverance is that you have worked seemingly in every single facet of the music industry, from performing in bands to being on the business and crew side. And you're one of the few people that I have always sort of thought about as like the Swiss Army knife, in that like you're prepared with every type of tool, no matter what the situation is. And it's what I think has always really been interesting is I've seen you in situations in the band, where you have definitely known when to step back, but then also like step up and show your knowledge of tour management or the merch side of things or whatever it is. So I just always really respected that. And I think there was a time when we were actually we were like between tour managers, and I had thrown your name in the hat, and then one of our old guys actually ended up being available. But I would love, if there was ever the opportunity where you were still doing that, I would love it to have you be the boss of the band for a tour, because I think it'd be a lot of fun. And I think it would be really a well-oiled machine. At least that's what I've always seen from you from a professional standpoint. So I just wanted to bring that up because you and I definitely do go back a number of years. Probably I would say to 2014 or 15, 2013. Okay, so wow.
Because the Warped Tour was in 2013.
Right. Wow. Okay. So yeah. So it's been a long time since you and I have been crossing paths and known each other. So I guess just a question for you is, obviously playing music is, I would imagine, the big passion. But how did you even get involved in the professional side of it, one way or the other? And what made you step up to take those other gigs when you weren't playing?
So when I was in Bury Your Dead, we got in a really, really bad van accident. I don't know if you remember that at all.
I do, yeah.
Back in that was in 2008.
Yep.
We were going into Canada, and it's a long story short, but we had this disgusting human at the Canadian border who purposely kept me and my singer Mike there for 5 hours, just legitimately to hold us up and make us sit there and wait, because she just was in a bad mood that day. And I'm not making this up. You, just as well as I, have gone over that border, and sometimes you get some decent people, and sometimes you get some, they all want to act a little like kind of hard ass.
No, but you literally have to pick the most odd time in the middle of the night to go there to get people that are getting off their shift before the new shift starts, so they don't want to deal with you, because it can be a fucking nightmare. So
yeah, shift change. That's the move. Is like, hey, when you find that out at whatever border it is, because getting somebody fresh is better than at the end of the night.
Yeah.
But long story short, she kept us there for 5 hours, and I remember like we'd just be sitting there, and I'd look over at her, and there was no one else there. There was not a single person in that entire building besides us. And I would look over at her, and she'd just be sitting there like laughing on the phone. Then she would hang up, and she'd start eating her sandwich. And just not a care in the world. And so whatever. So she, when I had drove the previous night, we played at what's the name of that venue? Jack's, Springfield, Virginia.
Yep.
Yeah, yep. We came Empire.
Yep.
So we played at Jack's, many good nights there. We played at Jack's the night before, and then I drove from Virginia to upstate New York, where our next show was. And, it was like a 7-hour drive. And I think I ended up, by the time that we got there, I think I slept maybe 2 hours. But then everyone's waking up. It's like 11 a.m. It's bright out. So whatever. We go to the show. We do the thing. I worked out in the parking lot that day. We play a show. And then, so I'd basically been awake for almost 48 hours with like 2 hours of sleep, 2 shows and two workouts. So I'm pretty shot. But the border was 3 hours away. And you know how it goes. You're like, it sucks being tired at the border, getting woken up. And so you're like, I'll just stay awake. It's like 3 hours. I'm fine. Like, I'll just get through it. Then I'll pass out. So we get to the border and the whole ordeal happens. And then by the time that she let us go, it was like, I don't know, 6:30 in the morning, something like that, maybe 7. So I get in the thing, and everyone me and Mike went out to the van, and all the other dudes are in the back. They're all sleeping, all tucked up. They've been there for 5 hours sleeping. And then I'm like, yo, who's driving this van? Like, I can't stay awake at this point. And everyone's like, tired. You remember driving back in the day, like when sidekicks are out, and you'd be like cruising, you do your van shift, and you look up at that rear view mirror, and you'd see little faces lit up, and you'd be like, all right, whatever, Mike, who's taking second shift? You hear,
yep.
You're like,
yeah.
Oh, you're asleep. Is that what you're doing? You asleep? So nobody wanted to drive, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. It's like an hour and a half to Ottawa. Whatever. Let's just go. Let's just get there. So I get in the van. I start driving, and I'm like fading. About 20 minutes in, I go to Tim Hortons. I get a big coffee and a sandwich. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'm awake. Start driving. I put on Slipknot. I'm like, just fucking driving. And the next thing I know, I completely just blacked out. My body just went, nope, you're
Shut
done.
down. Yeah.
And then I woke up, and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like on the side of the road. I'm like the median on the right side of the road. I'm like, in such shock. When you wake up, you're like, I can't think. I smashed into a sign, and then I got back on the road, and we're kind of turning, and I'm like kind of getting on the highway, and I was like, well, if this thing spins around, at least if I'm facing the other way, I can like stop us, and I can drive off the road to kind of. Well, by the time that like I got on the highway, and I got the van back on it, we were like, how do I put this? Like, we drove up kind of almost perpendicular to it. Well, the right tires, the passenger side tires on the trailer, they popped because of the weight of the trailer and it being like the G-force of it swinging that back end around. So the passenger side tires popped, and I felt the trailer hit the ground and like start going like that. And then it completely turned us facing the other road. But then by that time, we were already on the inside, the left bank of the middle median. And then we just rolled 4 times. And like every single time was like just I just remember getting like pile drived into the fucking ceiling upside down. And everybody else, they were all laying down on the benches. So it was just like a washing machine back there. And like I remember with the battery inverters, those things weigh like 8 pounds.
Yep.
Just steel, just smashing people in the face. And Slim's leg, they went out the window and came back in, and they just got completely eviscerated. Like just shredded. I mean, I remember getting out, and I was in such shock. I was like, wake up, come on, wake up. Like, this isn't real. Like, anytime, this dream sucks. Let's get out of this. Yeah. And then obviously it didn't. And then I got out, and I remember luckily our tour manager, he had his pillow against the passenger side window, because I remember seeing it go to the ground, and as soon as it smashed, it was like in the movies, when like the glass
shards
is
of glass
in front of you, and you're just like, oh, that's not good. And so luckily he was there, because if he was like all the way back or not there, that glass would have took my face off for sure. And when I got out, I remember being in such shock, and I'm like, no way. And Mark, the drummer, came out from behind the van, and his like eye was hanging off of his face, and he was just like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh. And then I look in the van, and Slim's just laying there with the blankest look on his face in the van, just like this, looking at me, looking at his legs, looking at me, looking at his legs. And you could just see bone and everything. And I was like, he's like, that's getting cut off. You don't have legs anymore. And like, I just fucking just full blown mental breakdown. The trailer was on the highway still completely upside down, and all of our gear was about just all the way down the road. You know, like you just think your life is over at that point. You're like, I fucking killed my friends, and everything goes, you know, I don't know. And then it messed me up for a while. I had bad panic attacks, and getting in a car and driving was really tough. And I had to drive him because he couldn't fly because he had to get all these surgeries done when we were in Canada. And everybody else, you know, they weren't as bad, but they took all of our gear, rented some stuff, and drove it all back to Ohio to kind of regroup. But me and my girlfriend at the time, she flew out from Alberta, and his mom called me and was like, he can't fly. Can you get him home? So I'm like, you gotta be shitting me. So I had to rent an SUV, and the three of us getting this thing, and within, I don't know, 20 minutes on the road, I had to pull over. I had a full-blown breakdown. I had to sit on the side of the road out by the trailer. I was just losing it. You know, like every time that, you know, at Talladega Nights when they're like, he gets back on the track and everyone's flying past him. He's like, oh! That's what it felt like. Legitimately. You're just like, oh my God, why is everyone so fast? Oh my God. And every time I would take a turn, I think we were going to roll. And I would just hyperventilate. I mean, and it went on for a couple of years after that too. And we would wait. I mean, all of us, remember on that neck, we went out and shared a bus with, In This Moment, supporting Five Finger Death Punch. And they were a brand new band, but they were obviously blowing up. And we're like, what the fuck is this? But we go out with this band. We're like, we can't miss this tour. Like, this is going to be really good for us. And like, you know, what can we do? So we got Aaron Brooks from Ghost Inside came out and filled in for Slim. Yeah, I'll get to the point with the tour managing in a second.
No, it's great. Keep going.
Keep it going. Keep going.
So he came out, and Slim eventually he got home, and he had to he was on hospice and everything. He had to go through all this crazy stuff, and bless his heart. And let's see here. And that tour was, I think, 2 weeks after the crash happened. Like, Mark had a broken foot, Mike had staples in his head, and I think a broken hand. And I didn't get it too bad. My neck and my hip were pretty messed up, and my arm was pretty sliced up, but nothing terrible. So, you know, 2 weeks go by, and we kind of get our shit together. Like, well, this is the only way we're going to make money, you know, like, and whatever the case is. So we go out on this tour, and we had found out that same tour manager, he worked. We got him through our manager, and I won't say who it is, but we got him through our manager, and what happened was he, manager. It turned out he had convinced him to steal money from us. So we found out he had been embezzling money, so we fired him, and we're on this tour, and I'm like, well, we can't really afford a tour manager. I didn't trust anybody at the time. I'm like, I'm doing this. So we had this amazing tour manager named Jenny Douglas. You know Jenny?
I don't think I do. No.
She works for 5B now, and she handles all the production over there with all the bands. But best tour manager I've ever met in my entire life. Most hardest working woman I've ever met. She's just one of a kind, that's for sure. But on that tour, I saw what she did, and I saw how hard she worked, and I kind of been doing that stuff for us anyway on the road. You know, like I was very business savvy, and I wanted, us to make good decisions and smart moves. So I was like, I need to do this for us. So she taught me how to tour manage on that tour. And then shortly after that, I think I only did maybe a couple more tours after that. And we had a lot of internal problems, and just things happened and whatever. And I eventually quit. And, but when I quit, I was like, I'm going to go and do this tour manage thing. So then I convinced Unearth to give me a job. That was my first real TM gig. I went out for $400 a week. And I was like, just trust me. We already had such a great relationship as friends. We had toured together, and I was like, trust me. And pat myself on the back. I actually did such a decent job that they were like, you work too hard. You got to get a raise. So they actually gave me a raise on tour, which is pretty cool. And I was like, well, I felt pretty cool. You know, it seems like I know what I'm doing. You know, I kind of talked a little bigger game than I had, even though I had some experience, but I never really worked for a band. And so that's kind of how it started. I worked for them, and then I went on, who did I do next? A couple bands, and I did Hatebreed off and on for 5 years, and Bring Me, and a few others in there, and so forth.
And you're still doing it, or at least as of late. You were out with, who was the last band you were out with? It wasn't In This Moment. It was,
I don't tour manage as much anymore. That's how I started with All That Remains. I jumped on teaming for them, and then shortly within a year, Jeannie had quit. So right place, right time. Turns out, and like, you know, we had toured together back in 2006, and we went to do Soundwave together, and you know, we used to kind of joke like, hey, you know, like if it ever happened, let's say, I don't know, if Jeannie ever decided to not be in the band, or if she got married, or whatever the case was, like it's like you'd be a great, you know. I was like, okay, whatever, you know, and we just joke about it because dudes. And then turns out she ended up getting, you know, she got engaged, and was, you know, her and her husband wanted to do a band together, and they wanted to do their own thing, and everybody, it was an amicable split at the time, and I happened to already be there, so it made perfect sense. She quit. 30 seconds later, hey, you want to be in the band? Okay.
Yeah, why not? But
I did a set first, but I'm so sorry. I'll finish this part real quick.
Yeah.
I TM'd us. We did a run with. We came as Romans, and I TM'd us on that. But then I was like, you know what? Let's just get a tour manager. It's getting too complicated with VIPs, and I want to focus on the band and just being in a band. So I'll do, if we have a fly-in or a one-off, I'll do it, but I don't do tours anymore. But the last band I worked for was they're called Epica.
That's what it was, right?
Band, yeah.
You were you in South America, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember, because that was like in the past year, wasn't it, that you did that?
That was October, November, yeah.
Yeah. I remember seeing that, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I guess he's not touring with All That Remains right now. What a great way to fill the time. And
yeah, and there's such great people. I mean, you talk about a band that's with such a positive attitude in general. You know, their vibe as people. They're so enjoyable to be around. So it makes working for them really pleasurable. You know, it's not like, it doesn't feel like work day in, day out. And they're like, I don't know, no egos. And for as big as a band they are, they don't have any ego. So like, it's great. It makes me want to go the extra mile when what's it called? The respect is reciprocated. You know,
yeah, when it's mutual. Yeah, for sure. You know, it's funny. One of the things that I clearly remember about being on tour with you, which has now stuck and been something that we do now with Periphery Camp, is, you know, you would bring out your flat top stove, or at least like a stove to have on the tour bus to actually be able to make eggs and steak and whatever it was. And I remember coming up multiple nights after the show or like before the show, and like, you want dinner? You want dinner? You want this?
Yeah.
You know, and just like slinging food. And I loved that. I loved the energy that you brought to the situation in the room. It never felt like it was too much, but it felt like you kept people taken care of. You know, is what I always took away from it. So it makes sense why you would be a great tour manager and have worked with so many great bands, and then why you would also be a great bandmate, because I think you really do care about other people, at least from what I've seen.
I do.
You know,
I come from the mindset, you know, we're all here together. We're all going through this. And so like some people are like, this is my band, this is my show, this is the thing, this is how things are going to run. And I've never been about that attitude. I've always been like we're teammates here, you know, just because, you know, everybody should bring something to the table. And if everybody is on the same page and not, there's the hierarchy kind of thing. I mean, you know, every camp, there typically is at least one or two people that kind of call the shots, if you want to call it that. But it shouldn't feel like that. It shouldn't feel like that's my boss. And I mean, every gig is different, of course. You know, if you plan for John Mayer, it's the John Mayer show. Like, that's how it is. But I don't know. I feel like when you're in a band together, if the camaraderie is there and everyone and it feels inclusive, like you're a team, I think you just get so much more done. And I just always had that mindset, like, we're like a squad, like, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
It's true, Bubba. I appreciate that you have that mentality. I see why you would be, you know, trusted in leadership positions. I have two very different questions. The one kind of sticking with tour management. First, I just want to say, look, I think it can be very inspirational for someone listening who has goals no matter what it is. You ended up in the position you are now as a touring bass player, perhaps in part because you just stayed in the game. even if you weren't a touring musician per se, you found ways to be of value to similar bands.
That was exactly the reason why I wanted to do it, because like I don't want to, now that I'm not in this band anymore, 'cause it ended, I'm not going to just go and I'm done, get a job. Like, I want to tour. This is what I love to do. So how can I keep touring until I get another gig?
Yes. So, and you look, whether it's just networking or sharpening your skills or learning more about, if you got an opportunity in the future to tour in a band again, you kind of learned what works and what doesn't, and it helped you be sharper. So one, I think someone can take that no matter what your goal is. If you have a vision for where you'd like to end up, just find a way to be of value within the field of that game. And it doesn't necessarily have to be what your target destination is. But if you can find ways to be of value to people doing what you're doing, that's a way in. Look, I realize that a lot of people paying attention to this love bands, want to learn about these things, like what it's like being behind the scenes on the road. And we haven't done that too much in the past few months on these episodes. So the first question will stay there. The second question, I think, will be more in line with the conversations have been having. For someone listening, can you explain, what is a tour manager? What are the responsibilities of a tour manager? You talked about having this sense of we're all in it together, which to me makes sense as a manager of human beings. But there's another side of it, which is the management of the details of the operation of a tour. So what would your definition be of a tour manager?
I was just going to say, one thing that'll sum it up really quick. You're the first one awake and the last one asleep every night and every morning. Yeah, that's what a tour manager is. But no, go ahead. You should definitely respond.
It depends on the level of the artist. So, if you're at the touring in a van, let's say mid-level to where we are, that's what I consider, like filling out a club. I feel like that's and touring in a bus. I feel like that's a solid mid-level band. Everybody probably makes a good salary and can do it full time, and probably can pay their bills. And then you get to I think a small big band, you get to Lamb of God level, and then you get to your bigger artists like Slipknot. So that's kind of the way I've always tiered it out. In the first two levels, you're going to do a lot more because there's only so many crew dudes. And with that being said, a tour manager, typically you'll have your agents and managers in band. They all come up with a game plan, what you're going to do. The booking agent does the routing. And then once you have routing and guarantees, it gets passed to the tour manager. The tour manager then at that point goes, all right, where are we starting? What do we have to go and do? So let's say, it's a U.S. tour, and we won't get into flying or overseas stuff. But so in America, you would go, cool, what's my budget? Are we doing a van? What's your transportation? All your typical logistics kind of things. So you have to get together who's going to be your crew, where's everybody starting out at, and where's the tour, you create a budget and a plan so that all your movements can be simplified and efficient and cost efficient. You obviously don't want to blow money, and you have to abide within boundaries of a budget. So getting that together and getting everyone from A to B and taking care of the bus drivers, dealing with the contracts, promoters, making sure that when you get on site, the show and all the details are advanced properly. You get on into a venue, you the first thing you do is you find your promoter, you introduce yourself, you run over your game plan for the day, what you expect out of the venue and vice versa, what the venue should expect from you and what your needs are going to be, and try to make it all seamless. And the more you plan, the more time you put into the preparation, the easier your day and easier your job is going to be, because printing out day sheets and putting information in and running around, hanging stuff up and making sure that your rider gets there or after show food shows up and everyone's taken care of. Usually within the third or fourth day, you find your groove, your rhythm, your routine. That way, I can plan I know it at every whatever time on a day it is, I know exactly where I have to be and what has to happen. So it's just anticipating. It's the hurry up and wait game. You got to be prepared to jump, and then obviously things happen and you have to be able to jump at the drop of a dime to overcome, bus breaks down. Hey, how do we get there? What do we do? What's the plan? Everyone looks at you. So And with the experience of touring for so long and being through so many scenarios, you learn what's the smartest move to do. How do we overcome this so that we can still get to the show and get paid? At the end of the day, that's all that matters. Getting on stage on time and collecting that paycheck, because that's what you're there to do, and making sure the vibe is good and everybody's happy. And that's the thing that makes all the difference in the world, is the vibe on the bus and everyone feeling like this tour is running smooth and it's positive. And that's kind of like, I don't know, I think that's what's always been my thing that I've always brought to the table, other than, I don't know, I have a pretty positive and, I don't know, outgoing personality, but I love cooking for people. And when that's going on, it's not something that, you have to go to a restaurant or you get shitty venue catering or whatever the case is. So when someone's there making you a meal in your own home for you, it's nothing but smiles. So and I love that. I worked in a lot of different restaurants, but I love cooking for people, and I love bringing that there. And we have taco night, we have whatever thing, and sometimes I'll bring it all into the venue and we'll cook in there. So, but it's just a little small comfort, because out there it's a world of inconvenience. So when you can bring something so simple, but makes everyone kind of, unified and puts a positive vibe out there, it's a great thing.
Hell yeah. I'm glad you shared all of that. Thank you. One, I think a lot of people are just going to find that valuable and interesting, since we don't typically explore these things on these episodes, but also just the fact that you took responsibility for the culture of the community, right? Mm-hmm. And I believe that's the job of any manager of human beings. I have worked for and get hired to help consult and work with all kinds of managers. And a lot of times I see they pick one or the other. They're either all focused on the people, but not the logistics, or oftentimes they're more focused on the logistics, but don't take into account that there's other human beings that are playing on their team. So I'm glad that you really covered both in the explanation. Yeah, Matt.
Just real quick. Well, and also you go outside of the team too, because when I'm coming up on your guys' bus to hang out, I'm not part of your crew. You didn't necessarily allocate food for me, but in fact, I think it was like steak taco night or something that you were doing up there. And you're like, yo, you want a taco? You hungry? And that made me feel not only, just liked and cared about and appreciated, but it actually made me feel more comfortable being in the All That Remains camp on the bus. Because that's a very, no matter what kind of band you're in, whether you are headlining or not headlining, or wherever you are on the tour roster, when you go into another band's vehicle, you're the guest, and you really have to mind your P's and Q's, so to speak, because you're in someone else's house. So whenever I am in, again, whether it's a van or a bus or someone else's space, I always feel a little bit uncomfortable at first, because I don't want to disrespect anybody. I don't know what the rules are aside from the universal rules, for tour buses and shit like that. But you just never know. So having somebody offer you a meal or cook for you or make you feel comfortable or welcomed is such a great feeling. And it transcended just that moment. It made the tour feel like there was more camaraderie. So I have to say thank you for that, because it was something that I really appreciated, that helped me understand your character and also the camp that you were in, or that you are in. It's like I got to know those guys through those experiences, which was great.
Yeah. And that's, and that's also a way, I think, for us to do something like that, because I don't go to bars. So, a lot of us, we don't hang out, everybody has a different rhythm on tour. And some people, like my drummer, Jason's all about, the show's over, I'm going inside the venue, I'm going to the bar, I want to talk to people, I want to hang out, I want to drink. That's not the way that most of us roll. We're all kind of like, I'm going to go back to my safe spot and just chill. And if dudes want to come up, or if we're going to interact, whatever, it's all gravy. But, I'm not a go out and get crazy and in public and bars and want to socialize with the whole venue. We like to keep it a little bit more chill. So it's a really good way for the bands to, intermingle. And that's how I've honestly met a lot of people on tour that I necessarily wouldn't have hung out with or met otherwise, because it's I don't know, it's a good, everybody can bond over food.
Look, I think it's really important to note that not everyone is going to be like you, right? Not everyone is going to maybe have that in their wheelhouse to go out of their way, or maybe it's not even going out of their way, right? It could be that that's just you. That's like deep within you.
Oh,
Right? You just want, you're a good-hearted, right, nurturing kind of person. You're very hospitable. You're just trying to bring everyone together, and you're spreading all of this like positivity, right? And granted, if I think you said your drummer is the one who goes right to the bar, he wants to connect with people, maybe that's not you, right? And I'm saying this to, like, in general, to people listening to this. If that's not you, that's totally okay, right? Everyone can find their way to bring some kind of positivity to the group. But what's great is you have someone like yourself who can take the lead, who can kind of be the one that kind of facilitates that, like, everyone picks their own little piece, but I'm going to be like the umbrella, and everyone's going to fall under, and I'm just going to like wrap all of you in with me. And that way, what's great about having someone like you as the leader, you become the one who extends this olive branch, or you make the bridge to all the people around you. And now it's this super inclusive community. Because I can imagine that it might be tough to go on tour with 3, 4, 5 bands, right? Maybe even, especially in the metal scene, I could see where there might be a, there could be not a rift, right? But there could be I'm not really sure. Matt was just saying, a feeling out process. He knows the general rules of engagement, we'll call it, but maybe he doesn't know, I don't want to step over the boundaries too much. But if you have someone who can kind of go out there and lead the charge, it's like, oh, no, we're all in on this together. Like, please come over here. Like, please come have a steak taco, right? Yeah. And maybe that's the sign. The universal sign is that everyone should have a Taco Tuesday kind of thing. And everybody should. Hey, would you like a taco? Right?
I want a taco right now.
Right?
Yeah, I really do.
Taco Thursday.
No, it's like anything. I mean, you just never, when you have a group of people living in a small space, you never know what the vibe is and what the mood is. And some days are better than others, and you just want to respect that. So typically it's like you want to be invited somewhere instead of just being the guy who's always like popping onto the bus, be like, hey guys, I'm here. Who's got weed? Exactly. Who wants to smoke? You guys, you got some weed? Cool. It's like, like you don't want to be that. So I think it was just cool to see that there was an open door, and I would sort of gauge your temperature, more than anybody else's, to kind of see it's hangout time, or we'll see each other tomorrow, or we'll see whoever. Like, it's always good to kind of be able to read that rather than have to put somebody in an uncomfortable position to be like, oh, hey, is it cool to come up there? It's like you just don't. It's awkward.
Yeah, exactly.
Matt, I don't see you being the type of guy who would say something like that.
No, and I wouldn't. But I've had people say that to me a lot on tour. Sure. And I'm sure you have too. Bubble. And it's like you don't ever want to be in a position where it's like, you're making me say this to you right now, and I don't want to have this awkwardness. This is your fault.
Yeah.
One thing I will say, and Justin, you'll appreciate this, is I remember too on that tour. I don't know if you remember this, dude, but I was working out and I was doing push-ups, and you came over and you were like, hey man, let me just adjust you real quick. And you adjusted my push-ups a little bit for the better.
Did I?
Yeah, because my arms were a little bit too far out. And you were like, bring in your elbows, bring your arms in your hands a little bit closer. And then that has been my push-up ever since.
Love it.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to a much bigger point about you personally, Bubble. Because if you think about it, most people wouldn't have, I don't even want to say not like the audacity, but most people wouldn't just go, right? When you see someone else in the gym, I'm very compelled. If I see something, it's like I want to say something. It's like because I just want to be helpful. And I'm sure that's probably where you're coming from. You're like, oh, wait. I saw something. I just want to I feel like I have to go.
Well, and he also...
piece of advice that'll help you.
He knew that I'd be I'm not a dick. Be like, fuck you, man. I know how to do push-ups.
Yeah, if there's people in my gym while I'm training, and there was a guy yesterday with a ferocious. Ferocious? Is that the right word?
Yeah, just go with it. Ferocious.
Is it good or bad thing? What do you?
Bad.
Okay,
yeah.
Atrocious. Atrocious. There you go.
Atrocious.
Wait, no, I like her. What did you say? Ferocious.
Oh, it's ferocious. It's horrible.
All right, so the guy in the gym had a ferocious what?
Oh, so Yeah, that's Bubbleese. I do that. I'll put words together. Deadlift, and like, there's just so many things, and and as somebody who's coached people and who like really, been trained from a world class coach, not won't smoke up her bum, but he's the best in the world at her class and whatever. So I've learned from a phenomenal teacher. So I love sharing my knowledge and I love helping people. But at the same time, dude has headphones on. He's just getting into it, and like it's not my place to stop him and be like, let me just start like telling you, because like that sucks, And there's however, millions of people who are better than me, and I like to seek information because I want to get better. But I don't know, if some dude came up and, especially if I don't know who he is, like, let me tell you, I'd be like, get out of my face. I don't care what you know. Like, don't still roll up on me and tell me what I'm doing wrong. Fuck off. But there has to be a certain couth to it, or if it's warranted, or if it's somebody that I'm comfortable with, like, yo, you're my dude. Like, let me give you some cues that I know will help you out, or like that I can obviously see where it's just some minor things, and it's not like I need to give you a one-on-one, but you gotta read the situation.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's been my relationship too with Justin, or at least that's how we started bonding really strongly. He was my trainer, helping me get the moves right. And by that point, I had already gotten my push-up cues from you, so I was good there. But that's a sensitive relationship actually, because like a trainer and working with somebody who's learning from a fitness standpoint, like you're struggling and you're using your body and the strength you have. And it can be a very humbling scenario and humbling relationship. Whereas, and I've never really been a trainer, but I imagine Justin, there's been plenty of times where you've watched me struggling and it's like, you want to help more, or you want to help me like lift, but you also know that by me pushing that extra rep out is going to benefit me. It's an interesting situation, but it's interesting that I think you guys actually share that same sort of caring, helpful sort of gene or personality trait that for me, it's always welcomed, especially with people I trust. I get it. If it's somebody I don't know and they're fucking getting in my face, yeah, like, who are you and why do you think this is okay? But if I know you and we're friends, by all means, tell me what I'm doing wrong so I can do it better in whatever area,
Right.
Anyway. Absolutely. I agree. Yeah. It's all about, and that's the thing that getting into powerlifting and competing, and since I started this journey, was learning, like, and I've worked out and I've known things for a long, long time. And even when I met you, this was before now, like, even relating to, I don't know, kind of like the amount of knowledge and stuff that has come my way that I've been able to absorb, even from then, is like, it's a different brain, different person, different approach to biomechanics and training. And like, it's just amazing when you learn how to do a little bit of this, do a little bit of this. To people who genuinely like know what they're doing and talking about, instead of like, oh, I did this, or I learned from this guy and I do this and blah, blah, blah. Like, having an open mind and learning to just, okay, tell me. And then you pull bits and pieces from different people, cues and whatnot, and everybody has to find their own approach to whatever it is that they're doing. So knowledge is power. Learning, it's great.
So that is a nice transition point. Thank you for setting me up. Because at the risk
You're welcome.
At the risk of pivoting a bit, going from physical fitness to mental fitness, I mentioned earlier I had two different questions. One being the tour management. But the other, I just don't want to get away from it. I've mentioned some of the things I've done professionally. Earlier in the conversation, I'm also a licensed psychotherapist who primarily uses music as my modality, drumming in particular. And you mentioned experiencing panic attacks after the van accident. And clearly I'm not the typical mental health professional in the ways that I live my life and present and express myself to the world. But I am on a mission of rebranding mental health in a sense. And I think your perspective, Bubble in particular, is really valuable because of how people perceive you in the world. You're this big, strong metal dude with tattoos who tours the world playing really aggressive music. Yet you were man enough to admit that you experienced panic attacks, which many people would still feel very vulnerable to talk about publicly. So I'm curious, what was your experience of that, and what did you do to mitigate the panic attacks? What did you do to take responsibility that you were struggling in these ways?
Well, when they first kind of happened, because I never really experienced them before, the van wreck. So I don't know, when I started kind of getting them, I didn't do much, to be honest. I don't know, because I don't know. I think the fact that we just went back on tour and we were all together with each other, that we went through an experience together, I think that was probably the closest thing I can consider to therapy, because we would talk about it a lot, like we would hear each other waking up in the bus at 3 a.m, like going over a rail, going and screaming and thinking that we were going to something, because we all dealt with it. No joke. Like you would hear, I mean, sure enough, at least once a night, somebody would hit something, or you go, like you would hear it and it would wake you up, because none of us were sleeping well. So we were there for each other and we talked about it a lot. And I think we leaned on it. But when I went through my divorce last year, I started getting them much more. It was a very traumatizing experience, at the end of my relationship, finding, going through some stuff. But to be honest, I was straight edge from 2001 up until, I guess technically about 2 years ago or so. But starting smoking weed was a game changer for me. It really was. And I mean, to this day, I still haven't drank since I was 19 years old. I have no interest in alcohol, and it's me. We don't gel. I quit because I had a little bit of an issue. I couldn't have a moderation. I was like if I couldn't get to 8 out of 10, then I would get, aggressive and angry. And it was all I thought about. It was very consuming for me. I just wanted to drink all the time. And it brought out I was driving and getting in fights and doing all kinds of stupid shit. And it really just brought out the worst person, because I had a lot of issues from my past. And it just brought out this angry person inside of me. So I quit, and it was the best thing that I ever did for myself, without a doubt. With easy statement for me to say. But when I went through this disastrous, my marriage falling apart, having something natural, it like marijuana really genuinely helped me deal with my issues, because I have an anterior tilt to my pelvis. It's I'm getting back, but it causes tension on my back, and I have a bulging disc in my L5. So and this has been going on forever, but when my back gets really tight, or my hips do, or like you sit in a van, or you don't take care of yourself, especially at the time, my back would get insanely tight, and it compresses my disc, and it causes excruciating pain. My sciatic lights up. So I have a tramadol prescription for that in the event that it happens, and it's thankfully it's pretty rare these days, but because I do the best I can to keep my body in check. But when things were getting bad with us, I reverted to that. I was like, well, I have these, and I know I'm openly talking about this, but this is real life. This is something real that I went through. And, I was probably taking one a day, but because my wife at the time was so mentally, just breaking me down on a daily basis, and it, just completely made me feel inadequate, not all kinds of stuff, but I numbed myself, because I didn't know how to deal with it. Every day I was like, I don't know who I'm going to get. I don't know what it is. And that stemmed from her, there was an affair that was going on. So I was getting projected all of these negative things because of something that, she was one hiding from me. So it was, I don't know, it was one of the worst times of my life. I just felt worthless, and she made me feel worthless. And, but so I was like, this is stupid. This is how people die. They start something small and it grows and gets worse and worse and worse. And luckily I was smart enough to realize that after like a month or two. I'm like, what am I doing? This is not what I'm about. I've been like, I've gotten through all these things for over the past 17 years, being straight edge and completely sober. Like, what am I doing to myself? Like, this isn't, because you're losing touch with yourself when you feel lost and I don't know, whatever. So, I sought out an alternative, and it was a game changer. It legitimately has had a great impact on my life and helped me deal with the panic attacks. Because once it ended and I left, I had a real hard time finding myself. And like, when you get involved and you commit your life to somebody and you give half of your soul to somebody else and it's being treated like trash, you feel empty inside. So, so it got me through that, and it definitely helped crutch me along, so that I could get my strength and my legs back and get back to doing what I love and feeling like a whole person again. So I'm a massive marijuana advocate, because in a society that just pushes pills and pushes drugs and pushes everything else that just wreck your body and you get hooked on, because someone's benefiting, someone's profiting off of your problem, and that sucks. So that's my story.
Yeah, look, I appreciate you being super open and vulnerable about that. I'd imagine it'd be really valuable to a lot of people listening. And I think you touched on a few universal lessons, no matter what the struggle is. Back to the van story, you had social support. You were willing to talk about what you were feeling. And that's always one of the healthiest things we can do, no matter it's a traumatic accident or a traumatic episode in a relationship. I mean, to have support and to actually talk about, express what's within us, we need that. I also think it's nice that you had to go back on tour right away. I could imagine that if you didn't, then maybe you'd become a bit phobic about getting in a vehicle again, or even a bit agoraphobic of even leaving the house for some people after something like that. So I think in a sense, it kind of pushed, the baby bird out of the nest in a way where you wouldn't become too resistant to it.
You're absolutely right. And even, all that stuff came to a halt last February. And I think we went on tour at the end of February. I think I only had a couple weeks from the time that I left and moved all my stuff out, and I went and stayed with my friend Chris. And I think we only had like 2 or 3 weeks, and then we went on tour with Attila. We did a co-headline together, and it was like one of the best tours the band has ever done. I mean, every single show was insane. And I'm so thankful, because I'm such a I get in my head kind of thing. When I don't have people to externalize and to bounce ideas off of, I'm somebody who like, oh, it's terrible, this is terrible. And like, I easily gravitate to all the things that are negative, and it's very consuming. So going through exercises to try to get above that and not be that way is a very obviously healthy practice. And finding, turning, hey, this is going on in my head right now. What do I need to do at this moment to get on a different train of thought? And once I finally left and we went on tour and I was around the people that I care about and performing music and having that outlet and being around people nonstop was everything, because I was surrounded by friends and passion and music, and it made all the difference in the world. So I think that's the best therapy is just, there's a really good story that I'll just drop into perspective. I have a friend named Kevin Ogre who he competed in CrossFit for a long time. Jack dude, so strong. He benches like 500 pounds. He was competing in an Olympic lifting contest. If I remember correctly, if it was Olympic lifting or if it was CrossFit, I can't remember. But I believe that he was doing a max overhead snatch, and I'm probably messing the story up, but he dumped it behind him. And for some reason, I think there was like some plates or something was back there, and the bar bounced off and it hit him in the back, and it broke his back. So it paralyzed him. So you go from being an A-level athlete to not having your legs anymore. I mean, that's some depressing shit. Like, I'm cool. I can't walk. So he, and I ended up meeting him through some mutual friends of ours, and we were out in Colorado and ended up at his gym, and we were talking, and he's in a wheelchair now. And he was telling me his story, and I was like, the first thing I was like, how did you deal with the mental frustration of, he's like, I didn't have time to, because the second this happened, I had this massive community around me, especially with CrossFit. They raised a bunch of money for him, and to help him get like his own gym started, and gave him something to go, wait, what? I have a gym now? Like, I now have this massive thing that's probably a dream to focus on. Like, like now your brain's like, I want to be bummed about this, but now I have this, I know they pulled together, and he's like, I had people around me night and day helping me that I didn't have a chance to let it get to me. And now this dude, he's so awesome. He still competes, and he still benches like 500 pounds. He lays on this table, and he puts like a seatbelt over him, and he still competes in bench press contests, and he can still do it. And but it's funny because he was, he's big upper body, little legs, like Joe Swanson on Family Guy. And we were joking about that. And he was like, dude, I actually did that for Halloween once. I was like, no way. He's like,
amazing.
Totally Joe Swanson. I'm like, that's so sick. Like that you have such a, I don't give a fuck about this. Whatever this thing is that's quote unquote hindering me, life is moving on. I have awesome things in front of me that I have, he just took it in his hands and just didn't let it defeat him. And like, to me, that's, talk about inspiration. Can I say the same about myself? I don't know. Maybe not, but pretty cool.
Look, I think it speaks to the power of your community and your quality circles and the people you have around you, right? If you can't pick yourself up, but you've got quality people around you that can help you and pick you up, it's just so it's so important, right? And I think it's kind of maybe what's great about doing a podcast. I think a lot of people could do this solo, and a lot of people do, but I always think of this as it's so much better together. I
agree.
Right, and of course, like with anything you do as a group, the highs can be that much higher because you have it, right, and the lows aren't as low. So when you have a good circle around you, like you had with your band support, like your friend had with the CrossFit community. I mean, the community, right? It's like it made me think of like, it takes a village, right? And maybe that doesn't just stop from like when you're a baby. It takes a village to raise the kid. It's like, well, like at any point you might revert and you might need the village to take care of you. And it's so freaking important, right? I had a couple of questions. When you had the accident, I'm really curious, what was the response from your mates? And what was your own response to yourself, knowing that you were so tired, like blacked out, and you woke up, you came to, and here's the thing. Did you really have the time to process then going back 1 or 2 weeks later? And how did you guys work through that together so that I guess eventually you could maybe forgive yourself?
I don't know. It's tough. There's definitely a part of me that does feel guilty, but at the same time, it's like it could have happened to any one of us, because when you're on tour in a van, you get used to being shot, not sleeping good. I mean, you're like, first couple nights in, you're like, oh, this sucks. But you just get into the state of like a stiff neck from playing shows.
48-hour days.
What do drummers get?
No, but I mean, like I was the driver, right? I was I drove more than anybody. 48-hour days was very common, multiple times a week.
Yeah,
and it was part of not to cut you off, but part of my own issue with driving was that I was worried about I couldn't sleep if somebody else was driving who I didn't trust fully, and there was like one other person that I truly trusted to drive safely and like get us there without fucking not being able to sleep. So I drove all the time, and we were really lucky. I mean, there were multiple scares. Luckily, we never went through what you went through and what so many other bands have gone through too, but it could have happened like that. And that's why when you're saying it's like the guilt thing, it's like, man, I put myself in your shoes, having been probably this far away from it happening. And I think that's kind of like the last thing that anybody would really, unless you're like intoxicated, which you weren't, and I wouldn't be, but like you can't control that. Like you fell asleep, your body shut down because we are shot. We've been up for 48 hours and just played a show and exerted ourselves and talked to people and aren't eating well. And you're not getting any
eating good food. What's that?
Right. I mean, exactly. It's just like
and training every day every day. So you're, super depleted.
Well, and at that time, it was not like I was, back then, before I don't even know when like it kind of started coming around. Maybe, I probably noticed it around maybe 2013, maybe 2012, but. Mid 2000s, you couldn't get day passes. Like gyms didn't do that. Either you were a member or you weren't. Or the day pass would be like, well, it's $50. It'd be some extortionate thing. You're like, I just come fucking work out for an hour. So you couldn't go to a nice place. It was always in some hot parking lot in the back of the trailer. Where you're like, I don't want people to see me, and I'm downtown somewhere, so I'm just gonna go in the trailer where it's an oven.
Miserable.
I'm gonna use my little things and sweat my life out, and I'm probably not gonna eat and rehydrate myself properly.
Yeah, then you're behind the wheel of a vehicle, and I mean,
with a trailer that has too much weight in it.
Right, and you talk about Canada. It's crazy how many accidents I've seen on like the QED. Our first, not to derail, but our first tour, I remember we were leaving Toronto. I think we were on our way to. We lost the video for a second. You're good.
Yeah,
on our way to Montreal, I think, and a dude tried to run across the highway, like on foot, and didn't make it. And we were like right there and saw it. But anyway, it's insane to me that we doing this profession get put in this situation. Let me rephrase what I'm saying. Okay, now as a headliner. If we have bands that come out with us that are in vans and we're doing a bus tour, man, I try to like be as lenient and understanding as possible if those bands need to arrive right before showtime. As long as they stay in contact with us, I don't care because I don't want them to fucking die. I don't want a van flip situation. That aside, let me just tell you, do you know Wes Houck?
I don't think so.
So Wes is a good buddy of mine. Toured with us forever, but he's a great guitar player, plays in a bunch of bands. He had this amazing suggestion to stay awake while driving. So anybody listening who has to drive long hours, don't do it because it's not safe. Like, don't drive long hours. But if you have to, roll your window down and hold your wallet or your cell phone out the window.
Smart. That's some brilliant stuff right there.
And that will keep you awake because you don't want to drop either of those things on the highway. I don't know how you feel about that, but that was his suggestion.
I have one funny, super inappropriate story, if you want me to tell it.
Yeah, sure.
Please.
So, I won't say his name because, I don't know, whatever. I don't think it matters. But, so I have a friend in a band that you and I both know. And so the story goes, he was driving and another one of the dudes was in the passenger seat. And obviously, if you're the co-pilot, you're supposed to stay awake with the driver, especially back in the day when we had maps. And remember like the first time you had a GPS, you were like, this is a game changer. I don't have to follow the roads or print out my MapQuest directions.
MapQuest, that's what it was. It was directions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The binder full of directions.
Yep.
So he's driving, and I guess the dude like passed out, and apparently he was like, I guess he had done it before, and he's just like, all right, you're gonna pass out while I'm driving. So band member X.
I know this story, by the way.
Do you know this one?
I've heard this one. But go ahead.
Yeah. Yep. He decides to fluff it up and gets a full-on baby arm holding an apple, starts working that bird, and then just before he's about to pop off, he like, I don't know if he like hit the horn or he like reached over and like smacked them. I was just like, oh my God. And they woke up like, what? He goes, check this out. Oh, and he started coming all over his stomach. There you go. You got to pass that night. You just watch the dude jerk off.
Dude, it used to infuriate me being the driver, having your co-pilot pass out. But it got to a point where I just expected it because, again, there was very few people who could actually stay awake. And it was hard for me too. At night when you're not driving and you're in the passenger seat, it's really hard at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning to not start conking out. I used to hit myself. I used to do all sorts of shit to try to I'd turn around. I'd stand up. I'd do all sorts of, acrobatics in the van just to try to stay awake. Never jerked off on anybody or myself in front of, but it
works though. It'll wake you up.
Absolutely.
I did it in the van. I've gone on road trips before, but it works. It'll keep you alive for a minute.
Caught band members doing it for sure. That's, in the back. It's like, what was that rustling noise? What? Yeah. Anyway, Justin, were you going to say something else?
I have no idea. I think we took a very hard pivot there.
We did.
So maybe I'll take another hard pivot. I'm curious a little bit of maybe the origin of what came first. Was it music or was it training? What was the first passion? And I guess to kind of bring them together, what are the kind of the parallels? Because I always think of me as a young kid playing music and figuring it out, and it was I just never stopped. I kept going and going, and it was I had the time to do it all day long. Training wasn't like that for me as I was little. Training became something that I found later in life because I had body composition goals and there's a lot of things that led me towards training, and it also led me towards competition. That to speak to your point of powerlifting, I competed in some powerlifting and some starting strength competitions.
Oh, amazing!
Because I didn't have it in me. I wasn't very competitive when I was younger, but as we get older, you don't get those ups anymore. You don't get to really go compete. You can join maybe a co-ed little sports club kind of thing. You go play volleyball or something. But I wasn't able to really go kind of put the pedal to the metal. And so when I found lifting, I was like, oh shit, I can also go scratch this itch as well. But I didn't put the same effort as I did when I was little learning music. So I'm curious which one came first for you, and maybe do you draw a lot of parallels between your training in both?
Music, definitely. I mean, since I literally can remember childhood thoughts. I grew up in a house. My parents were always playing records and music, and I have a brother that's 10 years older than me. So, in the 1985, when I was 3 years old, my brother had a mullet and shredded jeans and was showing me Skid Row CDs and stuff, and Ozzy Osbourne, and had tapestries, typical 80s rocker dude. So, I was pretty fortunate to be influenced by all that. Like I said, literally as 3 years old, like a child. And my mom always had an acoustic guitar. She used to play a little bit. Then I'd go and I'd steal it and try to fiddle with it. I don't know what I was doing. And eventually they got me lessons, and and I started learning stuff. And that's all I ever thought about ever was being in a band and playing music. That was literally the only. I mean, I played sports. I was obsessed with skateboarding at the time. For a good 8-year period, I really wanted to be pro, and I went hard. Skating was a massive passion of mine. As far as once I quit playing sports, after 8th grade, that was kind of the last thing, because once I got to high school, I started started my first bands, and I was really into skateboarding and drinking, and all this other stuff was going on. So I was just competitive sports and being focused just was not there for me. Plus, we didn't have a lot of money, and I went to my parents were fortunate enough that they put me in a really good private school, but we couldn't afford the programs. I got into school, but the hockey program. I mean, even I think at the time, I think it was maybe $1,500 or something, or $1,000 for the year, and we're like, that ain't happening. That's way too much. And it's so funny. Tuition now is $15,000 or something insane. When I went, it was free.
The places around here, I'm seeing 30,000, which is it doesn't make any sense.
It's mind blowing. But so high school is when I did my first band, and I actually started learning how to write. I wrote my first songs with friends and everything. So that was the beginning of that in high school. But music definitely came first, and the training thing. I worked out a little bit in high school with a friend of mine, but I mean, just after school stuff in his basement, and we'd bench, and he had a cable machine. We do some tricep stuff and preacher curls and bro pump, whatever. And then by the time that I got, when I joined Bayer Dead and I moved to Florida in 2006, I was a skinny 170. Then our guitar player at the time, Eric, was a big dude, and he was like, let's actually start training. Let's like get memberships and let's get jacked. And I'm like, okay. So actually started to work out, and I mean, you're a basic gym bro, just trying to fluff up and I didn't squat or deadlift or, I didn't really understand how to, you don't need to do that. It's bad for your this, and you don't have to anything. So I always worked out, and I honed on that, and I trained people, and I was always more about a mix between, like I liked CrossFit workouts, but I also liked just standard hypertrophy, if you want to call it that, whatever. But then by the time that I was living in Canada and was super depressed because of all that, being around the community at the time, I moved to Toronto, to be with her. I didn't have any friends up there, and so I was super just on my own, by myself. And then we had our problems, so I just felt very just alone in the world out there. Hence, things progressively getting worse because I didn't have my people around me to be I'd go on tour, and I would get my bit of that. But at home, it was just all I had was my little chihuahua, like I had my emotional support animal. And then, yeah, I think at that time I was like, I need something to put my energy into, like what can I do? I want to be competitive. I want to do this, but I like, being on tour, you can't exactly join leagues in sport. You can't, it's hard to commit to things. So I was kind of like, should I actually join a CrossFit gym and actually try to compete? Should I try to do a bodybuilding show? I was like, I'm not strong enough for powerlifting. But then when I kind of was like, it doesn't matter where you start at, just go do it. So I got my first coach and started working on it. And I fell in love, and here I am, still doing it 3 years later. So, and it's cool because, I can go on tour and find gyms and eat and all that and stay up with actual training. Like, it's not really hard unless you're overseas. That's when it gets tough, and flying and hotels because you're not eating and you're tired. And, but that has a lot to do with it. And and now I feel like they definitely work together, because they're definitely both big points in my life and things. So they merge at some level or the other.
You said it doesn't really matter where you start, just do it. I think everyone should take that and think about it, right? Like, you can't compare your place in your journey against someone else's, right? So I think for the group who's listening to this, I think it's really powerful. If it's, whether it's music, you want to learn a new instrument, right? Or you want to have some kind of movement practice. You don't have to lift heavy weights. You don't have to do bro splits. You don't have to want to do hypertrophy, like put muscle on. You can just walk from here to there, and that can be your practice. You can take one big deep breath, and there's your meditation practice, right? There's your breathing, right? It doesn't matter, where you start.
I remember
I started this, I'd put 185 on my back, and I would like, oh, this hurts. Something like I didn't know what to do with it, and like, it's just a matter of making it all work. And it just takes time to like understand technique, and like, you're engaging muscles and motor patterns that you've never done before. So you can't expect to walk into something just like being, like a world-class drummer. I can't look at you and go, well, I'll never be like that, so I should just stop.
Right.
How long did it take you to get where you are? My God.
It's like give yourself, maybe like 3 to 5 days a week, a couple hours each time for like 10 to 15 years, and then reevaluate.
Yeah.
It takes time. It all takes time. All the good stuff. It all takes time.
And you know what? And that's something that I've learned that's a big thing, especially and I'm sure you're just as savvy, as cliche as a statement this is, but learn to love the process. That's the best part, because when you do go back and go, where am I at now? Where am I at? You go, whoa, and it's easy to lose perspective, because there's days where I'm like, even honestly, even yesterday, I'm looking at my squats and I'm like, man, it's just crazy. I feel like I should be so much farther ahead than I am, but like, like this and that. But then I go, how far along? Could I do this a year ago? No, I'd be struggling. So shut the fuck up. Get back to work. It doesn't matter. Like every little piece of the puzzle every day, every little bit. And that's why they just say, just get your shoes on and get out the door. Just show up. Just to go and do something, because it's all cumulative,
Yeah.
Cumulative.
So we got to wrap shortly. We're We're going on 90 minutes, gentlemen. This is great.
Damn.
We should wrap shortly, but I did want to ask you one other thing. It was something that Justin and I were briefly discussing, having to do with training. So, I guess the question is, did you use your business savvy to get the quote unquote endorsements or sponsorships that you have for training? Or was that just sort of natural progression from people you have worked with, like your trainer, or just other? How does that? Because to me, from the outside world, not really having talked to you in depth about it, it looks like, the band is definitely a serious career for you, but it also looks like training is more than just a very important hobby to you. To me, it comes off that this is another career in some ways. Is that a appropriate statement? Or
absolutely, yeah. Because I don't know how it's going to pan out in the future, but I thought about coaching or even my own spot, or I don't know. I mean, I don't know where it lies for me, but I love training. I love the atmosphere. I love sharing knowledge. I love learning. I like, even with my dudes at the gym, there's nothing cooler than watching people get together in the same way there is at a show. You're literally creating this kind of vibe, this energy. And, I talk a lot with my gym owner about this because he's an old school bodybuilder. He's been doing it for 30 years. And, he had a very, very successful career in pharmaceuticals, big time. And he gave it all up because he's like, you know what? I'm doing this, but training and competing, and that's always been my passion, and I need to be around this stuff. This is the thing that gets me out of the bed in the morning. Is people who are dedicating and working hard. And when you own a gym, as I've worked in a few, and I've in the places that I've lived, I've been involved with a lot of them, not one way or the other. The community and the vibe is everything. The training atmosphere, and that's what I try to tell people about. I'm a big fan of get away from a commercial gym. Don't just go to an LA Fitness with your headphones on. Go to a place where people are there to push themselves. It's gonna have a carryover to how you approach your training and your mindset. Because if you go to a place like Planet Fitness where it's fun, what kind of results are you gonna get? It's a bag on the wind floating around. You're just occupying space. And I'm not saying that you can't get results there. Don't get me wrong, but being around like-minded, that whole warrior mindset, or whatever you want to call it, that's where I feel like you can really find out what you're made of and push yourself and get real results that much faster. But he's like, I gave this up because I need to be around this, and this is what enriches me. Making money is cool, but building this community, and he's kind of the top guy. He's the dad of our community, and I don't know, it's a great thing. And what was the question again?
I mean, I can to your look. That's a great. I could see you being that at some point. Yeah. Having the torch passed to you because of your understanding of the power of community, knowing yourself, knowing what you really enjoy, and the ways you push yourself, and the passions you have. It all makes sense. I mean, you are. You're driven, and that's something that could definitely transcend. I think suffering. Yeah, right.
Look, ultimately, he's passionate, right? But you're passionate about the stuff that you do, and I think that is what translates so well. And when I asked Matt, I said, "Hey, I see these different brands Bubble is repping." I was like, "Well, is he like what's do you know the deal? Is this like a sponsorship kind of thing? Is he like an owner of one of these?" Because from my perspective, I was like, "Oh, I clicked on something on Instagram, and then I kind of got lost, and my head was like, oh, it looks like maybe you own one of these brands." And I was like, that's what an amazing...
It might have been Inspired Nutra.
Okay.
Something. Yeah, but I was just really pumped that whether this was whatever the deal was, it was something that came from a passion. And that was clearly evident.
Well, as far as the sponsors, it's always been, I'm not a gifted lifter. I'm not out there. I can't squat 600 pounds yet. And people in my weight class do. And so forth, the numbers or whatever, I'm consistent, and I think I have a very good foundation of like the movements and mechanics. But it's always been me just talking to companies, selling myself. Like it's not just about that my numbers or anything. It's about what I bring to the table as far as a person. And companies want to invest in people. I mean, I guess on a real level. I mean, obviously there's people that have big accounts, and it's numbers and dollars and how it translates. But I know with Inspired, just dealing with Chris, who owns that company. He genuinely he wants to have people on board that bring positivity and like a good mindset. It's not just about, hey, I got this guy who has some big account pushing our shit because whatever. It's about, once again, the community and like, who do you want to be who's repping your brand, and do you want to be associated with them?
Sure.
So
yeah. And what was I guess the question is, for anybody listening who is passionate about something and is looking to get involved more with a brand, align themselves with it. For you, do you reach out cold call style? Have you had people approach you? What's been your method of acquiring those relationships and fostering them?
It's kind of different every time. Sometimes it might be through somebody. Like I'll hit people up like, yo, like that company's sick, whatever. Like I would love to reach out. You got a contact? It's the same thing, in music. Like, hey, I'm looking for a stick company. And how are the artists? I think or an instrument or whatnot. But it's the same thing in sports. It's I reached out to people. I've also just cold DM'd companies like, hey, like I would love to work with you guys. As you can see in my story, I use your stuff. I would be really cool to work on something together. I just did a sponsored thing for Corn, the meatless company. Like, if you see my page, it's me cooking steak most of the time or tons of things. But at the same time, I was, I got in touch with them and I was like, this could be really cool because at least I'm also providing content for not just the meat eater family or meat eaters, excuse me, that follow me. I do have a lot of vegans and vegetarians, and I was like, this would make sense to branch out and do something different. And it ended up being great. And they made me a chef coat that has my name on it. I'm like, that's like, to me, it just goes to show you like they're appreciating the work that you're putting in, because it's not just a post. Hey, here's this. I'll slap it on my page. Who cares?
Right.
Like I put time into those.
Yeah.
And they see that. So it's, if you're going to work with a company, make sure that it's mutually beneficial. Is all I'm going to say, because that's how you get called back. That's how you keep people, coming to the table and giving you work and wanting to collaborate with you.
It also helps too that when you are truly a supporter naturally of a certain brand, right? Like when you've bought product without the idea of a sponsorship or a relationship with the brand, and you can speak to that honestly. It's funny when you were posting about fucking nuts. I saw it through I think it was like Leah, maybe. I saw her like posting about it, and then I got some. I was like, oh, that looks delicious. I'm going to try that. Yeah. Started posting about it.
It's amazing.
Yeah, started posting about it and tagging them, and then Brandon reached out to me and was like, hey, man, this is awesome. Let me send you some stuff to try out.
Yeah,
if you have any flavor ideas, let me know. And it's like, man, it's just, and I've spent lots of time communicating back and forth of like, what about this flavor? What about this flavor? Try this, try that. It's just, it's cool. And so many of the endorsements that I have, even outside of music, come from just randomly, just random conversations or genuinely liking something and stumbling upon it,
Absolutely.
And then you get there. So I don't know. Anyway, but I was just curious sort of how it all sort of has been transpiring for you, because again, I opened up my inbox and I had bought some of like the greens from Inspired Nutri before, and then I opened up my inbox and then there you are. And it's like, I guess I knew that I know you use their stuff, but I didn't know that you were working with them in that way.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was really cool. And it's just for anybody listening, again, don't just start reaching out to random companies for endorsements and things like that. But if there is something you already are very passionate about and care about and are invested in already, it's always good to let companies know that. And if you do have something to offer through your community, then there might be a really good serendipitous relationship that is mutually beneficial that can be developed through honest interaction in that way. So I was just curious if it was something that you did cold call or reach out to like through DMs, or if it was through relationships or whatever it may be. But
Inspired was I was connected to them through Leah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, because she works with them, and just find out, like, I was with Muscle Farm for a long time, but they just, the company itself went through so many changes, and it didn't feel right anymore. So, I don't need free stuff. I mean, I want to work with somebody who's gonna, did you ever watch that show Ballers?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, I think it's the first season, when, who's the running back? Not Reg.
The guy with the big beard,
the
right?
beard, yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of his name. I can't think of it. I haven't watched this show in so long. It's been a while.
Well, there's a scene when he's got offers from all these different companies, and he's flying around. They're all up on their $1 million contracts, and he goes to Louisiana, and they're like, "We want to do this and that." And he's just unimpressed, because he's like, "Where's the love at?" And he kind of doesn't get it. Like, "You don't want money? Like, well, I'm giving you money." Like, show me the love.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they bring that parade out, and you're like, okay. And obviously that's on a much bigger scale, but I don't know. I want to work with people that go, we think that you fit, like, what can we do, that's mutually beneficial. And I've seen, from companies like Kiesel, who I've been with for, I don't know, 2 years now, whatever. I talk to the owner all the time, and they do stuff. And they're like, "Hey, let's work on this together, and like, let's come up with something cool." Like, you want to feel like somebody's investing in you. It's not just hey, you got can you just put here's your paycheck. Cool. All right, cool. Thanks. Bye. It's cold, and I've just always been about sound relationships and connecting with people. And like, it should feel like, whoa, we have a symbiotic relationship together, to like that everybody's winning,
Yes.
Show the love,
Well, and it's also what's really cool now too, and this is overstated for sure by a lot of people, and it's said all the time. But I'm thinking about it now because of like sort of the pathways to things. But how easily you can discover people and their content through your friends, and the amount of value that can be found through that kind of content. And essentially what I'm referring to is, I was thinking about, like, how did I even stumble across Leah? And it was because you posted something, one of her 60 seconds of science things, that blew my mind. And I was like, this person just sat down.
Oh, I'm talking about it differently. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I was talking. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. But you shared something like that, and I was like, this person sitting down in front of a camera and spewing this ridiculous information in 60 seconds as fast as possible. That's mind blowing. And I'm learning something. And then I also, discovered the
she's so smart and stupid.
Yeah, it's mind blowing to me. But like, it was so interesting. And I guess my point is, it's what's so cool is that when you find, just when you post something, because I know you and I trust you, and I know you're an expert in certain areas, I'll pay attention more to it. And I guess if people listening again are seeking out good information, the best place to start is to align yourself with other friends who have similar interests, who are also aligning themselves with other new friends that have similar interests, and you continue to sort of seek out information and knowledge and different things that can, elevate you or, make your life better, which is definitely the way that I learn about everything now through all of my friends. Is just like, oh, wait a minute, what is this thing? Why I got into Wim Hof breathing, or why I get into cold exposure, or eating amazing peanut butter. This whole time thinking about, like, my fridge is right there.
My jars are right in front of my face, and every time I look up, I see them, and I just
What's your favorite? What's your favorite flavor?
That cookie dough one blows my mind.
That's really good. I was just telling Justin to order Monster Cookie.
And schnozberry.
And the schnozberry.
I haven't had the schnozberry one.
Oh my god, it's those two are my favorites. I do like the cookie dough a lot. It's those big chunks of, But the schnozberry and the Monster Cookie are next level.
I'll have to get some.
It's so good. Yeah. Anyway, well, we should take this out. But just for me, I'm really glad that you said yes to come on. I think that there was definitely some great conversations. I learned things about you that I didn't know before, which is always the goal. And hopefully everybody listening can take some stuff away. But it's always good to talk to you, man. I feel bad because I didn't message you that day because it was just like too cheesy to do so. But I had it on my calendar when you guys were supposed to be in town because you and I were going to go get breakfast. Mm-hmm. And I had the notification pop up and I was just like, man, that's sad. Like, that sucks. That would have been fun. I was like stoked to show you certain good places in Baltimore to eat.
That's all right. There's other times.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I didn't make a big deal. I was like, yeah, there'll be another time. We'll get together. But yeah, anyway, man.
It was the last day of tour anyway. You know how that goes. You're just like, oh, I just want to get this. Just get me out. I want to go home.
Was it? No. I'm talking about recently when it was. Was that going to be the last day when COVID hit on that tour? It was more recent.
Oh, you're talking about that one. Oh, the upcoming. Yeah. I thought you meant
no,
of our last tour.
No. The one that was supposed to happen in the past.
Oh, yeah. That's not happening anymore, which is really cool.
Yeah, right. Yeah. There you go.
Cool. I haven't worked since December 3rd, but it's cool.
Yeah, that's all good.
No big deal.
Well, anyway, thank you for being on.
I genuinely had a really, really enjoyable conversation with you guys, and thanks for listening. And I definitely dove into some stuff I have not talked about on podcasts before. So
we have a knack for we have a knack for pulling that out of people. But that's the point. That's what I said to you before. I mean, we're not looking to talk about stuff that everybody's hearing about right now. I think the whole point is to show that there are levels to people, and there's that.
Agrees.
He totally agrees. Anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Jordan. Jordan, take us out, bro.
Cool. Thank you. Bubble. Yeah, I learned a lot about you, but I think, look, I really respect the way you attack your passions, the way you learn to stay in the game in order to just, whether catch breaks or just create your own breaks. I think a lot of people can find a lot of inspiration, even if they don't care about music or fitness or whatever it may be. These are universal truths that we can all apply to our lives. But what I take away most from this is that, like, it's just about people. You seem to really get that, whether it's your philosophy of creating culture on a tour, being a tour manager, or being in a band, or in your fitness communities, or the ways that you vibe with brands or other businesses, or perhaps the people that you share a home with. At the end of the day, it comes down to people, and the person that we choose to become is often what attracts others to us. Like you said, you may not be the most elite squatter in the world, but people in the fitness community may want to fuck with you because you're a solid dude. And I think oftentimes we put our job role or our skill set on a pedestal, and we don't put who we are as human beings. We don't place as much importance on that. So I thank you for sharing that with us, and sharing who you are in deeper ways. So much respect for you for that, or to you for that. Real quick, I want to say, we mentioned YouTube, obviously facebook.com/groups/chocolate croissants. We are recording this on Thursday, June 11th. You will be hearing this the following week, but if all goes according to plan, then on our Instagram at Chocolate Croissants Podcast, there will be episode 1 of what's called Puff Pastry, and that is a mini episode of sorts, an Instagram Live, with our community members, with our fellow sisters and brothers in the Chocolate Croissants community. Again, if all goes according to plan, Brian Wang will be the person on episode 1. We all agreed he would be a great fit for that. So head over to Instagram and check that out. It'll be archived in the posts below. That is it. It is about people. So become the best person you can be, and go attract some cool people to do interesting shit with. Here is some bells to listen to. I'm going to put the bells on the table. I'm going to take the earbuds out of my ear. I'm going to walk about 10 feet away, and then I'm going to say,